Welcome to the TheFallenState. I'm Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you all so much for being with me. I do appreciate it. You can support us by becoming a member of the TheFallenState.tv now. Isn't that amazing? On our YouTube channel or whatever. And you can go to locals.com and support us, and I appreciate it. And don't forget to check out our coffee. Punchy's Coffee. I have my own coffee. JesseLeePeterson.shop and get some Punchy's coffee. I have with me Kristen Van Nest. She's a writer, actor, comedian, and author. Her latest book is called Where to Nest, a global search for love, cheap wine, and a place to belong. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I do appreciate it. So how did you come up with the title for this book and why?
Yeah, so I named the book Where to Nest is a play on my last name, Van Nest. And then A Global Search for Love, Cheap Wine, and a Place to Belong. Basically, I spent all my 20s traveling all over the world. And so I lived in Luxembourg as a Fulbright scholar, and then I lived in China for 3.5 years working for the largest wine importer.
That's amazing.
So through all that travel, I kind of figured out who I am as a person while traveling the world and working and living abroad. So my journey was really about finding belonging, about what makes a place home.
Right.
And I mentioned cheap wine and love because I have some funny love stories along the way, as well as I worked for the largest wine importer in China. So I traveled all over China hosting wine dinners and selling U.S. wine.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted my title to show kind of what the book's about and what I learned growing up traveling. So that's kind of.
Are you a millennial?
A millennial, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And so how did you manage to do so much traveling and get around at such a young age?
Yeah. My grandmother encouraged me to travel when I was 16. So she was like, if you raise half the money, which I was at the time working for a caterer doing like, would you like some dim sum at weddings? She was like, if you can raise half the money, I'll pay the other half for you to live in Paris for a month. So I went to Paris, I lived with a host mother, and I studied French there, and I was hooked. And so ever since then, I've been traveling. I basically was able to afford traveling through just working.
Right.
So I would, when I moved to China, I knew like 3 people. I didn't have a place to live, but I had savings from my former job. So I was like, okay, I'll just figure it out when I'm there. And luckily I got the job at the wine importing company. So that way I was able to afford to live there. And then it's, cheaper to travel around Asia when you live in Asia. So I think for me, I was able to afford things through kind of doing these kind of that, and also just being low budget to like a crazy level my whole life. Like,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
What was it like living in China? How long did you stay there?
I was there for 3.5 years.
Really? So what was it like living in China?
I absolutely loved it. It's a very different culture than our culture. And so, every day you're kind of trying to do basic things. And at first when I arrived, I didn't speak any Chinese. Now I speak basic Mandarin. So, getting a taxi and telling my taxi driver where I was going, very basic things were difficult. But slowly I got used to it. I learned the language. I made local friends. And I had a great time. I got to meet people from all over the world and learn a lot about Chinese culture, which, it's because of their restrictions, we don't really get to see what it's like on the inside and talk to a lot of Chinese people.
Because you can only move about in certain areas.
Yeah, so they don't allow foreigners in Tibet or other areas like that.
Really?
Other parts of the country, it was the majority of the country we can travel to. The issue is that most things aren't translated. And a lot of countries, they love tourists. But China kind of, is closing themselves off from the world. So in their mind, they're like, we don't need tourists. So they're not trying to put signs in English or anything like that.
Were the Chinese millennial people friendly?
Yeah. They're very curious about me and kind of any foreigners. And it was really interesting hearing kind of like their perspective on specific things like the one-child policy.
Right.
You know, we hear about the one-child policy, and as Americans, we're like, the government can tell us how many kids? I don't think that's right, you know?
Yeah.
But speaking to them, they're like, well, you know, under Mao, they didn't have enough doctors. A lot of his policies, they don't have enough people who were highly skilled. So the government was like, well, we can't have as many kids because there's not enough food and there's not enough doctors and there's not going to be health care for them. So you can only have one child.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Were you afraid to move about for fear of being captured?
No, I was in Shanghai and I felt pretty safe there, mainly because their laws are really extreme. So basically very, very petty crime. You could end up in jail.
Right.
So one foreigner was telling me he went to the ATM and he put his card in, he took out his money, and then he left his card in and walked away. And someone else came and took money out of his bank account. Now, they only took about like $200.
Right.
So for him, he was like, I mean, you should steal. But they ended up being in jail for a year or two. And he felt so bad because he had made this mistake and then this has happened. But because they're more strict and more tough on crime,
Nice.
it's less crime.
Right on.
Yeah.
That's amazing, huh?
Yeah.
One other thing about China, what's the difference between the American millennial women and China millennial women?
I think over there, they're kind of in maybe how it was in the US in the 50s and 60s, where it seems like they're more conservative and they're kind of like exploring what does it mean to be a woman in a way where I feel like in the US, there's more freedom to choose kind of, you know, how you want to live.
Right.
I would also say it was interesting in the workforce because under Mao, you know, everyone's a worker. You can work in the factory, you can work in the factory,
Yeah.
everyone's a worker. So there was a kind of weird equality I saw in that because, you know, they're just like, oh, it's a man and woman, who cares? Y'all can work. You know, it's a kind of a different view than here.
That's
So
amazing.
I saw more women in certain situations. I saw more women in like male-dominated roles than I see in the U.S. just because of of communism, which is a kind of strange way of thinking about it.
That's amazing. And do they want to come here?
I think it depends. I think some do, and I think there's a lot of also, you know, propaganda and misinformation out there.
Oh,
So
okay.
it really depends who their news source is. But so basically a lot of the younger people have VPNs, which are like a tool they can use to get around the internet that's being blocked.
Right.
So they can see what we see.
Oh, I see.
But a lot of the older generations don't know how to do that because they have to be tech savvy.
Yeah.
And every year on the anniversary of Tiananmen Square, they would suddenly release new software that would block everything. So I worked for an international company, so I used Gmail.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then suddenly I couldn't use Gmail. Like imagine trying to log into,
Yeah.
you can't answer any of your emails because the government's stopping you.
For how long?
It would usually last about a week or two.
Really?
And you'd have to try and figure out different VPNs because the VPN companies are like trying to get around it and the government's trying to block them. So it's kind of like this game as they figure out what the new norm is.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So I want to learn all about millennial women.
Yeah.
All right. What's important to you?
I think what's important to me is that, like, you know, people are happy. And I think, especially when it comes to women, I think there's differences from our parents' generation on views on dating and financially what we can afford. You know, housing prices have gone up by like 1,000% since the 70s. And so growing up, I grew up in a very conservative town. A lot of my friends, their goal was to be married and to stay at home. And then as adults, a lot of them had to reckon with, well, wait a second, we can't afford a house unless we have two people working
Right.
full time. So I think a big struggle for millennial women is and millennial men is figuring out, well, financially, what can we afford from the dream we're told? Can we afford to have a house? Can we afford to have kids? Can we afford for one person to stay home, or do both need to work? Do both people want to work? And so there's kind of like questions of what's a woman's role, and there's also questions of what is realistically affordable from
Amazing.
this dream. Yeah.
And so, what type of man you look for?
For me, it's really about having equality and respect in the relationship. So I want someone who sees me as an equal. And personally, I like working. I don't want to be stay at home.
You don't?
No, not for me. I'm like, I'd rather answer emails than clean diapers, personally.
Really?
Yeah. My cat is my child, and I know that's weird.
That's amazing. And so you want to be able to go to work.
Yeah.
Ask your husband that. Well, if you're married, ask your husband.
Yeah.
Ask he go to work.
Yeah, he goes to work.
Would you want to have children?
I'm not sure. It's something that I'm kind of on the fence about. When I was younger, I really wanted to have kids, and at this point in my life, I kind of have these other dreams. Like, I had my book come out. I want to do more creative things, and so it's kind of a hard struggle of like, how do I want to spend my time?
So would you ever get married knowing that you don't want to be home? You're not sure about children. Would you ever get married?
I would love to get married. Yeah.
Would it be possible to find a man that is going to allow you to go to work?
Yes. So my current partner is very comfortable with my goals. But I have had trouble in the past with, men who maybe don't like that I enjoy work, and they, we don't have the same goals, basically.
When you say your partner, you mean your husband?
No, we've dated for 5 years, but we're not married.
Oh, your boyfriend?
Yeah, my boyfriend.
Why do you call it partner rather than boyfriend?
I like the word partner because it feels more serious than boyfriend. And since we've been together for 5 years, we're not married, but we want to get married at some point. So it feels more serious than boyfriend.
But boyfriend, girlfriend sound normal. Partner sound like a gay relationship.
Oh, we're not a gay relationship. So
So why not call it the normal way? My boyfriend.
I could say boyfriend. It feels less serious, while partner feels like someone who's like equal and like going to be with you a long time in life. Like you're traveling on the same path.
Really?
Yeah.
And so if you were to marry this guy, would you call him your partner or your husband?
Probably husband.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank God. And will you change your last name to his name?
I don't think so. I like my last name, and so it's kind of just like a preference.
Really?
But it's not, I think my view is kind of like anyone. I have 2 principles that I live by, which are treat others the way you want to be treated and mind your business. So if someone else wants to change their last name to their husband's last name, that's good for them. For me, it's not.
Really? Does he know that you would not want to change your last name?
Yeah, he's okay with it.
But you would belong to him. You would no longer belong to your parents or anyone. You would be his. Why not be one with him? Identify with him and be one with him.
For me, I don't see that as like, I see being one with him as like a choice we make with each other. I don't see it as I don't see it as determined by my name.
Really? So most millennial women think this way? I know you don't know all of them, but most women think this way?
Most of them probably want to take their husband's last name.
Oh, most women want to?
I think that's probably more normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you go the normal way?
Because I like, I'm a writer, and so I kind of want to have my work under my name.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. So why even bother to get married?
For me, marriage is just one closer way that we can say that we're partners and that we're kind of, again, on this journey through life. So I kind of see marriage as a more serious commitment than just dating.
What the? And so would you said that you're equal to him?
Yes.
How are you equal to him? He's a man, you're a woman. How are you equal?
I think that men and women should be equal. So my view is that we should each have kind of an equal power in a relationship.
Meaning what? Equal power, when you say that, what do you mean by that?
Like, we work together, and if we disagree on something, we find a compromise so that we're both happy versus one person having the final say.
Would you ever obey him?
Obey to me sounds like someone with their dog. How would you define obey?
Obey your husband, follow him, take his corrections, obey him.
I feel like following and taking his corrections are part of having a healthy relationship, but I also think that he should, in the same way, listen. If I have a correction, listen. And I think if two people listen to each other and make sure that they're both on the same page at the end of an argument, then I guess if they both kind of obey each other, that's a healthy relationship.
So you think he should obey you?
I think we should obey each other. I don't think I should have more power than him. I think we should be equal.
Really?
Yeah.
And you really think, but women are real emotional and illogical.
Oh, I think men are
Would
pretty
you
emotional
want a man
too.
to be that way?
I think there are a lot of men that are a little emotional.
Right, you are. You're such a millennial man. You're absolutely right. But would you want your husband to be that way, emotional and illogical?
I don't think I'd want anyone to be illogical because it's kind of hard to if people aren't rational and logical, it's kind of hard to cooperate with them,
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And that's why it's so difficult for men to cooperate with women because they're so illogical. They're so emotional. Am I right?
I think men are also illogical and emotional. I think it depends on the person.
But how about women?
I think there are some women that are illogical and emotional.
Have you ever met a logical woman?
Yeah.
Who?
Most of the women I'm friends with are very logical.
Like who?
Like my friends. People I spend time with.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing, huh? And so you believe that you are equal to a man?
Yes.
Does your boyfriend, does he tell you his problems?
Yeah, he comes to me if he's facing something, and I'll give him advice, and he'll do the same for me.
How do you feel about that?
I feel that's in my mind, that's a healthy relationship of having your partner's back, supporting them, and if they're going through something, being there for them.
How will you be able to look up to a man that would tell you his problems and look up to you for the answers? How will you look up to a man? Because that's a beta male. Will you consider that a beta male?
I don't think so. I think having someone who listens to you is part of a healthy relationship. I think there are issues right now where, if two people aren't listening to each other, it's really hard to successfully have a long-term relationship. Just even in at home or at work, if you're not communicating in a healthy way and listening to each other, it's very hard to maintain that.
And so you are able to help him when he comes to you with his problems?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
That's amazing. So is he beta or alpha?
I mean, how do you define beta and how do you define alpha?
A beta male would never go to his woman with his problem, right? An alpha male will. Is he beta or alpha?
I see that's what's equal to me because from how you're describing it, it sounds like beta is below me, but I don't see him as below me.
But based on my definition of a beta male.
Then I guess in your definition, he would be beta.
And do you see him as beta or alpha?
I see him as alpha because he's someone who makes his own choices and chooses his own destiny.
But he doesn't lead you.
He leads me, but I lead him. It's equal.
How did you become this way? Are you a liberal?
I think I'm relatively liberal. I grew up really conservative, and as I experienced the world, I became more liberal.
You did?
Yeah.
Conservative meaning what?
I grew up Republican, and then I became a Democrat when I was older.
What made you switch?
I felt like there was a lot of hatred, and growing up, I was a very moderate Republican, and I think I'm still relatively moderate today, but a little bit, if there's a line between Republican and Democrat, I was here, and now I'm a little bit over the line. But what made me switch is there was just a lot of hateful rhetoric that didn't feel very inclusive. And for me, my first rule about treat others the way you want to be treated.
Right.
There was a lot of like anger, and I didn't really like that anger. And so for me, that kind of put me over the edge.
So at the time you were conservatives, are you saying that the conservatives were angry? Or the liberals were angry?
When I was growing up, I would say the liberals were angry. And then I'd say, like, with the rise of Trump, I think that there was a shift where then the Republicans really became angry. And so a lot of that kind of like vitriol and hatred towards others made me feel less comfortable with the direction the party was going in.
And so you switched party because the conservatives were angry?
Mainly because Trump had different views than I felt my views were growing up as a Republican. My views growing up as a Republican, you know, were about family and about love and forgiveness. And I didn't really feel that Trump represented that. And so that was kind of where I...
Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, I am hopeful with a lot of his economic policies. I think he's doing a lot of things that kind of needed to be done, especially like cost cutting.
Yeah.
So I'm very hopeful with this term, his focus on economics. That to me is something that's important. Even if I'm a Democrat, I think that's important.
And when you come back home, when he's done, will you come back home?
If the party kind of it doesn't go more in his direction, I think I would consider becoming a Republican again.
But it's going all the way in his direction.
Yeah, so that's where I'm like, hard pass.
Do you love Trump?
No.
You don't love him?
No.
And why not?
I think that he has a lot of hateful views and a kind of bullying people and a lot of his like social issue stuff I don't feel is inclusive or loving and warm, and that's where I kind of like.
Really? Your boyfriend, is he liberal or conservative?
Liberal.
Oh God, you don't have a chance. And so tell me one thing that's hateful about Donald Trump.
I feel like, you know, he'll like bully, I'm trying to think of like a specific example, but you know, he's bullied people with like speech impediments, or he's made negative comments about like people who were in the military, calling like there was, you know, a military parade where he said like some of them were weak because they're in wheelchairs because they were injured in war, like that kind of stuff.
But to be in a wheelchair, being in the military, you're all weak. You can't be strong, right?
Well, you're in a wheelchair because you sacrificed your legs or your ability to defend our country. So for me, that's a very strong person. I wish I was that brave.
Really?
Yeah.
The president, do you like the fact that he shut down the borders?
I think that it's important that people come in legally to our country,
right,
follow the law. I don't necessarily like how he shut down the border, especially how it's treated families.
What do you mean by that?
Like children who are put into camps and separated from their parents. For me, that's like, when I talk about being a Republican growing up, you know, it was all about family values. And I think that's a very cruel way of shutting down the border.
Which is crueler, these people bringing their children over here, or Trump protecting America by shutting them off and sending them back? Which is worse?
I think both are sad.
But which is worse?
I don't know. I think if they're bringing their kids over here, it's probably because they're in a really tough situation where they're coming from.
But which is worse, to illegally bring your children into America, or for Trump to send them back?
I don't think it's worse for Trump to send them back, but I think it's worse for him to separate kids from their moms and send them back without family. That, to me, is worse.
But if the family sends them over here without parents, should he send them back without parents?
Oh, if they're sent over without parents, then he's not separating. For me, it's the separating of families that I find really.
Obama started doing that, right?
I don't know enough about that.
Remember Obama?
Yeah, I know, but I don't know his policy.
Oh,
but if he was doing that, I would say that that's also bad.
So because of time, so you're happy with the way he shut down the border? Are you happy he's sending the illegal aliens back?
I think that if you're entering our country, you should probably do it legally. So I think it's okay for him to send them back. I think it becomes tough when they have, they move here and their families are here and they've grown up here. And then if they've been here for 10 years, or for some of them, they don't even speak their language at home, I think we have to find a way to make that work, because that's really tough if you're I don't know what I would do if I was sent to another. If I was sent, let's say I was sent back to China and I don't speak Chinese, I'd be like, I don't know what to do here.
But if you were sent back home to China, it'd be a different story because they're sending you home. And so Trump is sending these people back. It doesn't even matter if they've been here 100 years, but they came here illegally. They still should be sent back home, right?
I think we have to look into that because, you know, if they've been here for 10 years, they're probably part of our economy. They're culturally part of our country. I think it'd be really difficult to just send those people back.
But they still broke the law. Why would it be difficult?
What?
They still broke the law to get here. They're illegal people. Why should it be difficult to send them back?
Because they've now, like, I mean, it's not just like a law of like black or white. It's also like, how do we treat people? And sending them back, like, they might not have family in their home country. They might not know anyone there. They might not speak the language anymore.
But they're still going home.
But like, you know, my book is about belonging. Like,
Right.
What does make home? If you don't have any family, if you don't speak the language, like a place isn't really home anymore.
If a squatter were to move into your house, they were there for 6 months. You finally come home and a squatter is in your home.
Yeah.
Would you say, you know what, you've been here for 6 months, you're real comfortable, you could stay?
I think
Or would you want them thrown out?
that would be an oversimplification of the border issue, in my
Why is
opinion.
that?
Because it's 6 months and they're living in your home. That's different.
How's that different? The illegals was in our home for 6 months, our country. What's the difference?
6 months, yeah. Then they should probably be sent back.
How about
It's when
6 years? Let's say the squatter stayed in your house, you're over in China for 6 years. You come back to America, and there's some squatters are living in your home, and they're like all comfortable, they're parking in the garage, they're working, they have little children. Would you throw the squatters out?
I think that that's an oversimplification of our border policy.
How's
in
that
that
different?
case. Because they're at my private property. That's different than, you know, having them come to the country and like work in our economy. Like, it's a different relationship between a government and the people in it than having them in your private property.
But our country is our private property. It belongs to America.
I think that's a simplification.
What do you
I don't
mean?
know if
It's a right or wrong. Either it's right or it's wrong.
It's not everything's black and white.
Like what?
Like, what do you mean? Like, not everything's black and white.
Like,
in this
what
case,
is-
I don't think it's as black and white. I think you are saying you either have to choose white or black. And I'm saying,
Right.
there's gray areas.
Where's the gray area?
Well, like with, let's say if kids grew up here and they've been here since they were children, let's say their parents are illegals and they were born on U.S. soil, like they're born here.
Right,
They grew up here.
right. But they go back with their parents.
If their parents are being deported, but if they're, you know, they might have the choice to stay here. If they grew up here and now they're an adult, or they're, you know, 16 and they don't even speak their home country language, it's not really their home anymore, the other country. If they were born on U.S. soil, this is their home.
One other quick thing that you disagree with the Great White Hope about. Did you know I call him the Great White Hope?
Who is that? I don't know that phrase.
You don't know who the Great White Hope is?
No.
Donald
Is this
Trump.
Moby Dick? Is this the whale at the end? Are we trying to catch the whale?
Donald Trump. Do
Okay.
you agree he is the Great White Hope?
I think you know I disagree with that. I don't know what that means,
You
but
don't know.
I don't think I'm going to agree with it for what I said.
So let me ask. He's doing an amazing job, right?
No.
He's white,
That I can agree with you on. Yes,
and
I
he's
can agree.
great.
Not for me.
Is it great to make America great again?
I think that is a very vague statement.
What do you mean?
I mean, it's like a tagline. It's like a tagline's supposed to like make you believe in something, but it doesn't. That specific tagline has things in it that I don't agree with.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you support abortion?
No. Or
Yeah.
yes, I'm pro-choice. Excuse me.
So you're in support of a woman killing a man's child in the womb?
I am not in a sport of killing babies, but I'm in the sport of killing things that aren't babies yet.
If a woman gets pregnant, what part of that is not the baby?
Because
it's not a baby.
It's not fully formed yet.
But it's still a baby, right?
I don't think so.
When you're a little child, you're first born, right?
Yeah,
and you're growing
that's
up.
older.
Are you a child, or are you an
baby?
adult or a child?
That's a child or baby, but that's not what's in the womb.
It's still a baby.
I'm against killing a baby that came out of the womb. That's murder.
Right. But why are you against killing a baby in the womb?
Because I'm not sure it's a baby yet.
But it is a baby.
That's what you believe. That's not what I believe.
What do you think it is?
I think up until until it's like has a brain and like has functions, it's not yet a baby. And so I don't think it's something that we need to protect. And if anything, I think we should protect the mother and father who maybe they're financially not ready to have that child. Maybe they can't support it. Maybe when it becomes a baby, they can't actually give it a good life. And so for those reasons, I don't think as long as it's still not a baby, I don't think it should be born.
Really?
Yeah.
Would you have wanted your parents to kill you when you first conceived?
If I was a baby, I wouldn't want that. But if I'm not a baby,
but
that's
how
their
do you
choice.
know when it's not a baby?
I don't unfortunately know enough about the science of things.
Right.
But for me, like I think a baby is probably something that has like cognitive function at a minimal layer.
Really?
Yeah. If something has if it can't think, it doesn't have a soul.
Millennial women, how they differ from the other women that are older? What do you call those women that are older? Yeah.
Or
How millennial women differ from Gen X? Gen X is the older one, right? That's one over. Okay.
Okay.
How Gen X women differ from millennial women?
I think more Gen X women, are we talking about the parents of millennials? I'm not sure what Gen X would be. Okay. If we're talking about parents of millennials,
right.
Yeah, I think a lot more women were stay-at-home moms,
right.
especially during the 90s.
Yeah.
But financially, that's not really possible for a lot of millennials because if housing prices have gone up by 1,000% since the 70s.
I understand that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And that's why I think, especially with dating in millennials and for Gen Z, it's really hard because growing up, they were taught, oh, if my husband works really hard, he can afford to have a house for us. But when it comes to my generation, if a man makes the same amount he made to his father, he can suddenly no longer afford a house.
So if you met a man that can afford to take care of you,
mm-hmm.
to work, to buy a house, to travel and everything, would you then stay home and raise his children?
That's not what I want in my life, but if another woman wanted that, I totally support her.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so what other way are older women different than your generation?
I think a lot of them they were staying at home and they had a lot more like responsibilities within the home, which again goes back to the economics of if you can't afford for the woman to stay home, should the woman do all the laundry? Should she take care of the kids? Should she have all the responsibility in the house? And that's a really tough thing that a lot of people are dealing with right now because a lot of men growing up saw their mom do the laundry, cook,
right.
do everything. And they're like, I want my wife to do that.
Right.
But if a woman's working, if they can't afford a house without the woman working, if she's working all day, she's too tired to take on 100% of the home responsibilities.
That's why she shouldn't be working.
But financially,
she was created to do the homework.
But financially, they can't afford it.
I know, but they can if they don't be greedy. They buy a house that they can afford. But and then later on,
houses cost 1,000 times more than during the 70s.
That's going to change with Trump, don't worry.
I mean, if women want to stay home and take care of the house and their man wants them to do that as well, I'm all for it. I just noticed that with my friend group, a lot of them can't afford that. So they saw it growing up and now they're adults and some of them do want to stay home and take care of kids, but financially it's not possible.
I noticed that millennial women are very depressed and lonely and empty. Why is that?
I think there's a lot of men that are also really sad and depressed.
No, but how about millennial women? Why are they so lonely and depressed and empty?
I think because the promise they were sold growing up that if you work hard, you can have a house, you can afford kids, they can't actually achieve that.
But housing doesn't bring happiness. It doesn't stop you from being lonely. It doesn't stop you from being depressed. But yet, millennial women have a lot of money now. They're educated. They're out there, pretending to be equal to men and working, but yet they're lonely and depressed and they have a lot of anxiety. Why is that?
I think because a lot of men, if a woman wants to work and a man doesn't want her to work, she's unhappy either way.
No, but I'm talking about those women that are out there working.
So they
feel
want,
lonely and depressed.
Because they would love to have a man in their life, but they're not able to find a man who's okay with them being an equal. And so if they can't find someone who sees them as an equal, they would rather be alone. But in the end, they'd love to have a man in their life, but they aren't finding a man who respects them equally. And that's the problem.
Because they're not equal, and no real man would want a woman that think that she is.
That's why a lot of men are also single and depressed.
But
there's single women depressed, or there's single men depressed.
But women got to. I noticed that, and I noticed that the correct working woman is more depressed and anxiety stricken than the man. Why is that?
I don't think that's true. I disagree on that.
No, all the studies show that. They become alcoholics and everything.
There are a lot of men who are alcoholics too.
We're talking about the women.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is I don't necessarily think there's more women. I think it's both sides are unhappy.
But all the statistics show that more women are depressed and suicidal and has anxiety than men. And they're working women. They're like, oh, I'm so stressed. They're more becoming alcoholics. Why is that?
I think if women are sad and they're working and they have other things in their life, they do want a partner, but they can't find a partner who treats them as an equal. And for them,
I know, because that's never going to happen. Why don't they change this false idea that they are equal to men so they can find a man?
I don't agree that it's false, and they don't agree that it's false. So then they would rather be single than have a man who thinks that they're lesser than them. They would rather be single than have a man who thinks that a woman is less than them. And so they're choosing to be single.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing. So let me ask, did you vote for Kamala Harris or Donald Trump?
I voted for Kamala.
Why?
I believe that she had more of the vision that I wanted. And also I felt like Trump's first administration, he didn't get a lot done. And it was very he was more focused on the social issues of being angry about different types of people than he was about actually succeeding in policy.
What was her vision that you had? You said she had the same vision you have, right?
Yeah.
What was that?
I think it was more her views on equality and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on some of them right now.
I thought so.
Okay. But I feel like Trump's views were a definite no for me. And so I definitely didn't want him in power. And so for me, that's where it was if I'm choosing between horrible and not horrible, I would go with the not horrible.
But you said that Kamala Harris had the same vision that you have. What's that?
I think that there's definitely more a focus on equality as a general principle. There's looking at having policies that are, support working mothers and support more general, like I said, equality. I'm blanking on specific policies that I can say right now. But
Nice.
I don't think that Trump cares about equality, and I don't think that Trump cares about people's happiness.
And what is equality?
Equality to me is goes to my principle of mind your business. If someone lives different than you, that's totally fine.
Right.
But they have an equal level of power in our economy and in the law.
But what is equality?
Equality is an equal amount of power and rights under the law.
What does that mean?
So that means that everyone has an equal right to vote, or everyone has an equal right, if they choose to be LGBTQ, that's okay as well. There's not Trump repealed that, so now there's only men and women can be listed on driver's license and that kind of stuff. I'm personally against. That doesn't support my values.
So you think that a man in a dress who think that he's a woman, or a woman in pantsuit who think that she's a man, should be able to say on their driver's license that they're something that they're not?
Yes, I think that they should be able to, if it makes them happy and it doesn't hurt me, power to them.
But isn't that a sign of mental illness?
Not for me. I don't think it is.
And why not?
Because
So a male who think that he's a woman, right? But you know he's not a woman. He really knows he's not. He just think he is. Or a woman who thinks she's a man, but you know she's a woman. You wouldn't call that mental illness?
I
Is
call that
sanity?
a choice. That's what makes them happy. If it
Is
makes
it sanity?
I think it's sane
How's that sane?
because that's their choice.
How's that sane though?
They can live however they want. If
You're
it's not
right
hurting
about
people,
that.
I don't care.
Right, absolutely. I totally agree. They can live whatever they want, however they want. But why would you call that
Sane because it's
why would you call that sane?
it's a rational choice.
What do you mean by that?
They said, you know what? I'm actually happier wearing a dress. And so I'm choosing to wear a dress.
But would you in your mind say that's a real woman?
I don't know what a real woman is. I see that's
You
where
don't
it's
know
like
what a real woman is?
I'm fine with them choosing whatever they want. It's not hurting me.
Really? Right. I understand. You're right about that. They can do what they want.
So I don't want to put a label on them.
But
That's
what
their
is
choice.
a real woman?
I have no idea. What do you think a real woman is?
You don't know what a real woman is?
What's a real woman?
Are you a real woman?
I don't know. What's a real woman?
So you don't. What the?
What's a real woman? Real means not fake, but that's so vague. I don't know what you're asking me.
So I'm asking you this to make I'm black and slow, so I may be right. I don't understand. Are you a real woman?
I hope so.
You're not sure.
I don't know what real woman means.
And why not?
Well, what I'm asking you, what does it mean?
Why is that you don't know what a real woman is?
Because what does it mean? I'm asking you for a definition.
So you don't know if you're a real woman or not?
I know that I'm a woman. I don't know what a real woman is. What's a real woman?
So when you see yourself in the mirror,
I'm like, that's a woman.
how do you know that's a woman?
Because I think I'm a woman.
What?
Because I have the body of a woman and I think I'm a woman.
And do you see a real woman in the mirror?
I think so. I see a woman.
Do you see
What's a real woman?
Do you see?
What's a real woman?
Do you see a real woman in the mirror?
What's a real woman?
No, I'm asking you. When you're
No, I'm
looking
asking
at
you to define it.
When you're looking at you in the mirror,
I see a woman. I don't know what a real woman is.
You don't?
What is? I'm asking you to define it. What do you define a real woman
Do you know
as?
what a fake woman is?
What would a fake woman be?
Do you know what a fake woman is?
Does that mean you have fake nails?
What do
if
you
you
mean?
have fake lashes, are you a fake woman?
What do you mean you don't know what a real woman is?
I'm asking you what how do you define that?
And I don't even. I'm trying to understand your thinking.
I'm trying to understand your thinking.
What
I
do you
can't
mean
if I don't know
you
what
don't
you
know what a real woman is?
I
What do
know
you
what a
mean by that?
woman is.
Do you have a degree?
Yeah.
You went to college?
Yeah, I don't have a doctor's degree though.
But when did you stop remembering what a real woman was?
What is it? Can you please?
No, I'm asking you.
In order for me to answer your question, it would be great to have a definition of what's the difference between a woman and a real woman. How do you define those differently?
That's amazing. Are you joking?
I'm asking you a question.
Oh, amazing. Okay. I noticed that, and I'm trying to learn about you teaching me a lot.
Okay.
So you don't know, do most millennial women don't know what a real woman is?
I think if you went up to someone on the street and were like, do you know what a real woman is? They'd be like, you mean a woman? And you're like, no, a real woman. They'd be like, what do you mean a real woman?
That's what the average millennial woman would say?
Yeah, I think that they'd be like, I know what a woman is, but what's a real woman?
Really?
What's that mean?
So when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you're not understanding that you're seeing a real woman.
I look at the mirror and I say, I'm a woman. Do I look at the mirror and say, I'm what Jesse defines as a real woman? No, I don't know what that is. That's why I'm asking you for a definition.
If you saw a man who pretended to be a woman, right? And then you see yourself as a woman, which one would you think is real? The man that pretended to be a woman or the woman that is a woman?
I mean, looking at how they look, I probably think the woman that is a woman. But if the man wants to be a woman, if he chooses it, that's his choice.
Right. That's
I'm going to mind my business. I'm going to let him do
with you on that.
Yeah.
But when you're looking at a man who pretended to be a woman, and you're looking at yourself, a woman, you would think which is real.
I would think I would be the real one.
And why?
Because visibly, maybe he's not good at doing his nails yet.
That is amazing. So let me ask, I noticed that millennial women are jealous of men today. Why is that?
I don't think millennial women are jealous of men today.
If they're not jealous, why they want to be like men or be equal to men?
I don't think that they want to be like men. They want to have the same amount of choices as men.
Meaning what?
They want to be able to work in the workplace. They want to be able to make choices about their bodies. They want to not be judged for how they look. There are a lot of things that men have that women don't. And I think women want, again, going back to the equality, they want the same things. That doesn't mean that they want to be a man. They want the same choices as men.
So they want to be able to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be able to plow a mule.
To do what? Sorry. I don't understand what you said.
Pick cotton.
I don't think anyone wants to pick cotton. I think if you're picking cotton, you're forced to pick cotton.
So they want what men want.
They want the same choices as men. Opportunities. They want the same opportunities as men.
But why would that why are they jealous of men though? They want to be equal to men. Why are they why are they comparing themselves to a man? Why can't they just be a woman, go to work, whatever, without comparing themselves to a man?
I think that they want to be able to go to work and not have worry about, oh, do my nails look good? Oh, is there discrimination happening? They want to be able to go to work and be like, I just want to do my job.
So if they don't want just to discriminate, why do they discriminate against men?
How do they discriminate against men?
By comparing themselves to men, always complaining about men, falsely accusing men, and things like that.
I think that there's a lot less false accusation happening than non-reported rape cases. There's a lot of studies on that.
What?
So
even that is made up. Women are not being raped by men in the manner they pretend that they are. They did a study recently on the college women, and so many of them are lying and saying that they're raped when they're really not being raped. Why is it so easy for women to lie that whenever they want to hurt the man, they can easily lie and say they've been raped, they've been beat, they've been this and that? Why is that so easy for the woman?
I don't think that's true, and it's really sad that men would rather focus, I think rape is the issue, and I would hope that men are anti-rape. Are you anti-rape?
Men
Do you think that men should be able to rape women?
Men are not raping women. Women are lying about it.
No man right now is raping women. Zero rape is occurring.
I'm sure you can find it somewhere. But more women are raping men than men are raping women.
I don't think that's true.
No, it's true.
You believe that more women are raping men than men are raping women.
Absolutely.
Interesting. I don't think that's true.
Why don't you think that's true?
Because there's a ton of studies and things like that say otherwise.
No. There are more proof now that women are... Oh, let me ask this because of time. Yeah. I noticed that women love to take the men's children away from them. They go to court during a divorce situation, and they lie, say, oh, he beat me, he raped me. They make up lies so that they can take the man's children away from him. Why do women have so much hatred in their heart that they are willing to destroy the children to get back at the man?
I don't think that's true in all cases.
I said most cases.
I think the court, if you think that the court is making the wrong choice, then the problem is the court.
No, I'm asking you, why are these women so hateful toward men, that they're willing to destroy the children of the men to make the men hurt? Why is that?
I don't think that's happening en masse. It might happen here and there, but
no,
I
it
don't
happens
think
every day, all the time.
I don't think that's true.
But it is. I'm telling you, it is.
Well, I disagree.
But let me ask. One other thing about this, I noticed that women are looking for love, right? But they're looking for a father's love. Have you noticed that?
Is this like women who use the word daddy?
What?
Is it women who are looking for a daddy?
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what you're saying either.
I noticed that women are looking for a father's love, but instead they get screwed. Have you noticed that?
Hey, if men are pretending to be caring and compassionate, and then they're screwing over women, I'm not a big fan of those men. That's pretty sad. I feel bad for the women.
Are you a feminist?
Yeah.
And what does it mean to be a feminist?
For me, being a feminist means believing in equality between men and women. That goes back to what we've been talking about: equality, right. Equal.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I recommend to men that they should date for 7 years before they, and then get married and then have sex. That way, because women are so cunning at hiding who they really are, and when the man marries her, all hell comes out of her, right? Am I wrong?
That sounds horrible. Have you had some bad marriages? It sounds like some bad things have happened to you.
Am I wrong in suggesting that the men wait 7 years so they can see the real woman, and then they would know if they should marry or not? Because women are really, because they're so cunning, they can hide their true self until they marry. Am I wrong for suggesting 7 years?
Yeah.
Why?
Because that's like a very bizarre way of looking at marriage, that like magically after 7 years, a woman suddenly can't hide that she's a horrible person. I've never heard of like
so
7
would you
as like...
suggest longer?
I would suggest, if you think that women are trying to hide who they are and manipulate you, it's going to be really hard to have a healthy marriage, because you already assume the worst of the person that you're trying to court. And if you think the person that you're trying to have a relationship with is a terrible person, it's going to be really hard to build a good, loving marriage between the two people.
I noticed that millennial women love to fight men. They attack them physically, and then the men don't attack back. Should a man, if the man is defending himself from this woman, should he attack her back when she attacked him physically?
I have not heard that millennial women attack more than men. I've never heard that. I think self-defense is an important thing, but if someone attacks you, usually a lot of like abuse cases, they do something small and then it escalates. The moment one person attacks the other person, relationship over. Right. Neither person should be attacking each other.
Agree.
That's horrible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But when a woman does attack a man physically, should he defend himself by attacking her back?
I don't think he should attack her, but he should defend himself.
But should he smack her? When she smacked him, should he smack her back?
I don't think so. I don't think anyone should be smacked. I don't think anyone should smack anyone.
I understand that, but what I'm asking is that, because it does happen a lot, when women smack men, should they smack them back?
I don't think either person should be smacking each other.
Know
I'm
that's
against
not the
both.
question. I am too.
I'm against both.
But when women do that to men, should the men smack them back?
He should defend himself and get out of that situation.
By smacking her back?
I don't know if smacking her back is the best way to defend himself.
If a woman knows that the man is going to smack her back, is she less likely to smack him or more likely to?
I mean, probably less likely, but I don't think having everyone scared that someone else is going to smack them is the best way to handle these kind of problems. Probably like therapy, or like working on yourself, or like going to anger management to be like, why am I smacking people? It's not normal for people to smack other people. No one should be smacking each other. Do you think it's normal for people to smack each other?
No, I'm telling you, it's not normal. People shouldn't fight one another.
Yeah, 100%. I am aligned on that.
But these women are out of control now, that they do it a lot to men, because men have been told not to smack them back. What I'm saying is,
none of my
if
friends
men start
smack men.
smacking these women back,
yeah, none
are
of
the
my
women less likely or more likely to smack them?
None of my millennial friends are smacking men. And if
Good.
my friend was smacking a man, I'd be like, why are you smacking him? Or if a man was smacking my friend, I'd be like, for both of you, relationship over. Done.
But should he smack him back if she should smack him first?
No, he should defend himself.
But smacking back is defending yourself.
That sounds like an attack. That sounds offensive versus defensive.
But isn't the woman attacking him?
Well, she shouldn't be. That's what I'm saying.
But when she does,
he should be defensive.
Attack her back?
No.
Why not?
He should defend himself and remove himself from the situation.
What the? That's amazing. So let me ask, what's wrong with the blacks?
I have no issues with the blacks. What do you think's wrong with the blacks?
Do you know what's wrong with them?
No, I don't.
Really? Should we give the blacks DEI?
I don't
Or
really.
should they have to earn their way?
I don't really think I should speak for the Black community because I'm not part
You're
of the
not
Black.
speaking for them. You're speaking for yourself.
I'm gonna skip that one because
Oh.
I don't feel comfortable answering on the Black community. Yeah.
How do you feel about there's a genocide upon white people in America as they're doing in South Africa, and white people are not defending themselves? They've been robbed, they've been raped, they've been broken. People, the blacks are breaking into their homes and things like that, and the whites are being blamed for everything that's wrong with them. How do you feel about the fact that white people are under attack?
I'm gonna skip that one too.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
And why is that?
Because I don't know enough about. That what you're describing is not something that I believe or have any knowledge on. So I'm gonna avoid it.
Do you believe racism exists?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you believe white supremacists exist?
Yeah.
And do you love white people?
I guess I love people.
How about white people?
Yeah, some white people. I'm friends with white people. I like white people. I ain't got a problem with white people.
You love white people?
I love all kinds of people.
How about white people?
Sure.
Amazing. Are you a Christian?
I'm more agnostic now.
And what does that mean?
I'm not really sure if God exists, but I grew up Presbyterian, and I do pray and I speak to God sometimes when I need help or I thank God for things. I'm basically not sure if God exists, but I feel God's love and I love God back.
But if you're not sure he exists, how do you know you're feeling his love?
I'm not really sure. That's why I'm like agnostic. I'm kind of unclear on it.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
And so you pretty much still pray to him and you believe you're feeling his love because of your religious upbringing?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Should women play in men's sports?
I think that like physically, it's not always fair. So probably not. That kind of makes sense, separating by gender.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so men shouldn't play a women's sport or women shouldn't play a men's sport?
Yeah, I think that's like a physical thing where there's advantages that aren't fair.
Amazing, huh?
Yeah.
One last thing about the Great White Hope. Now that he's doing such an amazing job, you know he went over to Saudi Arabia recently. He's over there now, right?
Yeah, he got a plane.
He got a beautiful plane, and the Democrats are jealous. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's unconstitutional for him to accept gifts. So,
No, it's not.
like from a constitutional standpoint, I don't think he should have kept the plane.
Do you know who Jasmine Cricket is?
No idea.
Oh, okay. I won't ask you about her then. I got to put you on the hot seat.
Okay.
All right?
I thought I was already in the hot seat.
You ready?
Yeah.
The hot seat.
What is love?
Ooh, I feel love is about unconditionally showing admiration and kindness towards others.
Do we need more white babies?
I don't know. I think, I mean, yeah, I don't really have an opinion on what kind of race the baby is. We probably need more babies to keep our country the same size it is right now. But at the same time, like with environmental stuff, maybe we have to have less babies because there's less resources on the planet.
Do we need more white babies?
I don't really have an opinion on what race the babies are.
Have you ever seen a ghost?
I have not, but I would love to see a ghost, although I'd probably be too scared.
Yeah. What is a man?
I'm not really sure, like, the technical definition. I've never been like, well, does he have balls? What if he loses a ball? I don't know. What if he only has one ball? Is he still a man? I'm not really sure. In high school, there was a kid, and he got a soccer ball hit him in the nuts, and one popped. Is he still a man? I have no idea. Do you think if a man has one nut, he's still a man? I don't know.
Amazing. Are you done?
What? I'm waiting for the next hot seat question.
Should we give the blacks reparations?
I'm not going to speak on that one because I'm not part of the black community. I'm going to skip that one.
What is the best place for a first date?
Ooh. I think probably a bar because then you can grab a beer, and if it's not going great, you can leave at any time. I'm worried if you have a first date at a restaurant, what if you just don't, what if you two hate each other? Then you're stuck there all through dinner.
Is the earth flat or round?
Round.
Have you ever kissed a dog on the lips?
Ooh, that's a good one. And no, that's gross. That's a no for me.
Does the bear shit in the woods?
Hopefully. Otherwise, it needs to go see a doctor because there's a lot of stuff stuck up there.
Do you have perfect peace?
No, I feel like I have a lot of room to grow as a person.
Do you have anger?
Yeah, definitely.
Which is worse, abortion or slavery?
Oh my God. I don't know. I'm not picking that one. They're both horrible. Or well, I guess slavery would be worse because I'm pro-choice. So yeah, that would be my choice. Sorry.
I'm sorry, which is your choice?
Slavery would be worse.
Is it ever okay to call a woman fat?
I think if you're concerned about someone's health, there's nicer ways to say it.
True or false?
Okay.
When she's crying, she's lying.
False. I think it's a terrible and sad thing to think people who are crying are always lying. That's such a sad way of looking at human beings.
True or false? Sending your kids to a public school is child abuse.
I think that's false. I went to public school.
Do your parents know you're so liberal now? Are they aware of this?
They're very liberal. My parents are more liberal than I am.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Did you have fun?
Yeah.
Thank you for taking on the hot seat.
Yeah. Thank you.
Tell the folks how to get your book, your website, or whatever you want to promote.
Yeah. So my book's called Where to Nest, A Global Search for Love, Cheap Wine, and a Place to Belong. My name's Kristen Van Nest. Definitely check out the audiobook because it's read by yours truly. Also check out my social media at Kristen Van Nest, which is just my name. I do a bunch of funny videos on there. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Amazing. Thank you again for coming on and taking on the hot seat.
Yeah, sure thing.
And thank you all for tuning in. I absolutely appreciate it. Let us hear from you. You'd like to see other interesting guests on The Fallen State, contact my producer at TheFallenState.tv. Producer at TheFallenState.tv. Producer at TheFallenState.tv. And don't forget to like, follow, ring the bell. Y'all know what to do, right? Do all that. And check out the merch and all those amazing things. Let me hear from you. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
That was amazing.
That was fun.